Hi, I'm Ross from Energy Matters. Welcome to our podcast, Road to Zero, where we dive headfirst into all things renewable. Join us as we chat with industry experts, tech specialists, and some of your favorite TV and radio personalities, asking the renewable energy questions that you want answers to. Our goal, a zero carbon future. With that in mind, I am absolutely thrilled today to be joined by Andrew Mitchell, the Senior Product Manager for FranklinWH. How are you, Mitch?
I'm very well, thanks, Roche. Great to be here.
Mate, it's awesome to have you on here. I referenced in my intro that TV celebrities, tech specialists, appears that you're basically all the above, mate. So, I've had a sneak preview of what you're filming with my colleague James Treble, and it looked amazing. So, very excited to have you on today, mate.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Great to be here. I should plug my wife's acting coaching for Singers Service because she's definitely helped me with that.
Oh, fantastic. And what's it, Sing for Service?
Oh, she's a singer, but she does acting coaching for singers.
Fantastic. And what's her brand name?
Zoe Taylor Mitchell.
There you go, guys. So you heard it first. If you want to have as much composure as we both do, give her a call and Google her, and she can hopefully give you some coaching. I probably need some her coaching as well, mate. So look, let's get into it. Before we actually get into the TV show and the actual episode that's shown this week on 9 Live, Saturday, 4 p.m., a little bit more background on yourself, Mitch, a bit more about the person behind the brand. Can you just give us an update on, or a bit of an intro on your career to date and what led you to FranklinWH? Yeah,
sure, mate. So I guess started back when I went to university. I chose engineering, always interested in energy and sustainability. So I chose the environmental stream. And then 5 years later, found myself employed by petroleum companies, filling jars with soil so they could get tested and signed off as not too badly contaminated. And I thought, I've stuffed up here. I don't know where the environment misaligned to renewable energy, but I was fortunate enough to make a bit of a leap across to a small company back in 2009, an inverter manufacturer who was doing system integration for rural electrification programs in Malaysia and Indonesia. So got great exposure to not only the technical side, but the social side of bringing electrical energy to communities and seeing the change it can make to a community. So that really jump-started my career in the renewable energy space as a technical specialist. And when I moved back to Melbourne, I was employed by Enphase Energy. Spent a long time there in the product and solution teams, delivering some great consumer products, so home energy management systems, and then most recently made the move to FranklinWH. The manufacturer is just energy storage products, but with a view to making it that give the customers a lot of freedom around their home energy management. So really enjoying being part of a young and growing company here.
Look, I really like Franklin as a brand. I mean, I've got a close affinity with Enphase as well. So Wilf was the I know he's moved on now, but he was the former CEO of Energy Matters many years ago. And I love the team down there as well. And they've got some great tech for their microinverters and their battery storage as well. So it's amazing. But I've been really blown away with Franklin's technology. And we've been working closely with Franklin now on a couple of different TV shows and doing some, sort of basically checking out a few of the projects that you guys have set up. And it's incredible tech. I mean, it's a US-owned company. But can you give us a bit more background about Franklin and how it really differentiates itself from its competitors?
Sure. People use the terms energy independence and energy freedom. It's a pretty common tagline. But what I really like about Franklin is that energy freedom aspect of it, and at different levels. So first and foremost, I like to say that Franklin creates the tools for our installers to deliver solutions. So it really gives them the freedom of choice of what PV they want to use, whether they want to add diesel gensets for extended autonomy and for off-grid sites. There's really no, you're not locked into any suite of products like your Apple or Tesla approaches. It's really it's part of your toolkit, and you can build some really cool solutions with that. And then at the consumer level, obviously gives them a whole lot of freedom of choice in terms of how they use their energy, whether they just use their battery for self-consumption or they want to tap into VPPs and trade energy, and whether they want to defect from the grid. And that can be a highly controversial topic in itself, but we've seen in regional Victoria quite a number of people who have considered the grid a revenue source for their premium feed-in tariff. And once that expired, they sort of said, well, hang on, I don't use much energy. So they've used our product to just go off grid entirely and now operate with solar and storage. And the genset's there for those, extended cloudy days in the Victorian winter, but really it gives them the freedom of choice as how they consume their energy and where it comes from.
Yeah, no, fair call, and very poignant as well, considering what we've just lived through with the cyclones in the Gold Coast. I mean, unfortunately, I had my solar panels installed, but we're still waiting for my inverter and batteries to arrive, or my inverter specifically. And geez, I was wishing I had it then. And I think anyone, having gone through a blackout, a 9-day blackout, it's when you realize, in real life, how important it is to have technology such as what you guys provide. Because, as you highlighted, yes, it's great to be able to send some power back via VPP and get a return on investment. But fundamentally, the most important thing to any person at any home is to keep your home alive and powered, irrespective of what's going on with the grid. And, look, fair play to distribution. The distributors like Energix and Ergon, they've done the best job they could do given the issues in essential energy in North New South Wales. But fundamentally, when a tree falls on a power line, there's nothing else they can do to help you. So you have to be able to have an independent solution, which is which is super, completely highlighted by your tech and what you guys do. It's also what we're showcasing on a television show this week. So that's on Saturday, 4 p.m. on 9 Live. Before we start chatting about your Franklin's involvement on the TV show, we're just going to play a short little clip just to show what's coming up.
Well, their system worked out very well in this application, especially with the generator. You can wire a generator directly into the system itself. Not many systems have that capacity to do that unless you start talking some serious money. And they're more off-grid systems as well. This is a more residential home that's grid connect. This application alongside of being able to just modular stack them as many as you need, and Bernie can expand on the system as the business grows as well. So, with that being the case, that's a very practical solution for him.
Wow, so that was absolutely awesome. So, look, it looks amazing. What an incredible project as well. I mean, first and foremost, Mitch, did you guys enjoy filming Energy Matters?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, it was a really good day out. I must admit, it was my first time doing anything on that side of the camera, and I was presented with a script in the lead up to it, and I thought, oh, here we go, some contrived filming event. But no, it was really awesome. James was so laid back, and the whole team was very professional and made it really fun. Yeah, the script never even came up. It was great.
No, look, the best way to film television is unscripted. So for anyone watching the show, you may think we're really reading off, one of those screens and we're just reciting lines, but there's none of that. It literally is a conversation. And look, when you know your product as well as you do, which clearly you know exceptionally well, and the project's so inspiring, such as the place that we filmed at, the rest does it. It does it for you. And then James Treble as a presenter is like a barrel of laughs and impossible to keep a straight face to, because he's just constantly, ribbing and just having a bit of a laugh. So awesome stuff. So tell us a little bit. We don't want to give away too much. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project that we filmed and the involvement of Franklin inside of that project?
Yeah, sure. So it was a really interesting one. It was, I guess, the part I appreciated most, how it all started, was the fact that the customer, Bernie, had done a hell of a lot of research and obviously looked at all the different products and solutions out there and arrived at Franklin as the best for his needs. He operates a business, a nursery, from his residence. So not only does he have his home energy requirements, but also the hothouse where he keeps his plants, and through the depths of the Victorian winter, he needs to keep that at a certain temperature. So that a highly variable energy demand, and also it wasn't co-located. So you've got the shed with his existing solar array in one place and the house in the other. And he was trying to, as you said, his main purpose was to maintain the power supply, so his plants don't die and he loses all that stock, but also obviously reduces his bill as well. So the two-pronged approach that Melbourne Energy Group, the installer, took was really successful and allows for future expansion as well.
Which is absolutely fantastic, because that really is a key requirement when you look at renewable energy technology today. I mean, the great thing is the cost of batteries has come down significantly to what it was. So it's super affordable. There actually is a genuine return on investment now on batteries, whereas about 4 or 5 years ago, you definitely couldn't say that. But once again, it does allow you to actually build on your actual battery solution. So you can see what you're generating, how much you actually using during the daytime, how much you're storing, and then understanding, okay, maybe I need to store a little bit more. So with the actual equipment that we've showcased, can you tell us a little bit more about the actual product itself and its capabilities now, and how it can be actually added to or expanded in the future?
Yeah, so one of the benefits of the Franklin product range is it's very lean, very simple. There's only 2 SKUs, so that we've got our energy storage all-in-one AC coupled battery, which is the A power, and we've also got the A gate, which is basically an AC switchboard, which allows you to manage all the different sources and sinks connected to the home. So firstly, the battery is a 13.6 kilowatt hour energy storage device with integrated DC to DC converter and inverter, which is 5 kilowatts continuous, 10 kilowatt surge. And that extra surge capacity really allows you to do the whole home backup. So the Franklin, the WH in the Franklin whole home name stands for whole home. And really there's not many other grid-tied products on the market that give you that level of surge and insurance that you'll be able to keep all your loads on during an outage. It's also a very nice looking device. You'll see when the show airs that it's aesthetically pleasing. It's got a nice state of charge indicator on the front, keeps the UI nice and simple. And the A gate, I suppose, is where the kind of nerdy stuff comes out with the home energy management and how you can tie in different resources. But just at a high level, you can connect any PV inverter in there, any genset. You can also control certain circuits via the smart circuit relays, and just attach that to any existing property. And also for the regional folk, it addresses or allows installers to address challenging sites with sheds and granny flats and all those things, because that can, when you're talking about backup, that can get quite complicated. So we've got a nice toolbox to support all those use cases.
I like it. So essentially your technology has got that flexibility and capability to be connected using any other hardware. So for example, if someone who's already got solar power on the roof, let's say they've got, REC solar panels, they've got, ABC inverter, is the compatibility a problem in any particular types of scenario, or can really Franklin's solution sort of couple up with any particular inverter that's out there?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of alternating current. It's all the standard. So 230 volts, 50 hertz. Every inverter that's compliant with AS4777 will plug straight into that. And we use, obviously, when we're grid tied, they're all operating in parallel. But when we're off grid, we use what's called frequency shift to manage the supply of solar power during an outage. So there's no need to run extra comms cables or any protocol that requires interoperability. It's just purely AC coupled.
Wow. I can tell you now, there's probably about 300,000 of my neighbors that is just pricked up and thought, okay, this sounds pretty good. I mean, there's a high concentration of solar power in my local area, just purely because we're elevated and we can get some really good sunlight here in the Gold Coast. And at the same token, next to no one has battery storage, and we're running off diesel generators. And I know that's a similar sort of scenario to the actual nursery as well, right? They were kind of, they started off with diesel generators as well as the solar power system on the roof, and then really thought, you know what, we need to move off diesel and get onto battery storage.
That's right. And there's probably a tipping point in terms of the frequency of grid outages. If it's only one a year, you could probably say, yeah, I'm happy. I've got the genset. I know how to use it. I'll just use that when I need to. But then when they become more frequent, and also when they become longer duration, first of all, you can't use your solar with the genset. It remains disconnected. And second of all, it's really noisy and it uses fuel. So once that, and we're seeing it globally as a result of climate change, sadly, but increased frequency and duration of events causing grid outages. And so when you take those into account and look at battery backup, sure, the capex is a little bit higher, but if you look at it over any reasonable horizon, just peace of mind, your operational overheads, and just the fact that you can still use your solar power. It's clean, it's silent. So I think we're already seeing in the US and now Australia, more and more people opting for household batteries due to outages. Whereas I think in years gone, it was more about that emotional response to losing the premium feed-in tariff and saying, I want to store my energy. But really, I think the material benefits of technology like this is about your energy security and lifestyle.
Absolutely, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because it really is about quality of life and being able to, just live like essentially just, live a normal existence when there is a weather event. And, and I think what you just absolutely delivered on there in terms of what you just said is, unfortunately, the grid network is vulnerable. Like, it's all above, the majority of it's above ground. And it doesn't take much. I was listening to, on the radio, we only had access to ABC radio in the car because we had obviously no power, no TV. There was no phone cellular coverage. We couldn't Google anything on our phones. Everything was completely dead. But the radio in the car worked. So that was our ability to charge our phones, charge our devices, and listen to the radio to find out what was going on. And the communication that's coming from the distributors like Energix and Essential were like, it's not really just about a tree falling on the power line. It could be a branch that's being blown from the other side of the street, disconnecting a power line, and things can go down really, really quickly. It's not like it's a 1 in a million chance. Power lines are innately very close to trees, and that's just the way that infrastructure is designed and run. So it's not going to take much to lose power. And the other thing you just touched on, which is, as I said earlier in the conversation, we were down for 9 days. Now, this is the 5th power cut we've had in 9 months. So, and one was for 24 hours, one was 3 days, one was a planned one for a day, another one for another 24 hours, and now a 9-dayer. So it really is, and we're in a really good spot. So the reality is, this is a sign of things to come. And it's not a scaremonger or saying, look, everyone needs to be worried. I think fundamentally, everyone just needs to kind of take ownership of, this is the world we live in now. Things unfortunately aren't going to go back to hunky-dory. There's going to be some wild weather events. It's just the nature of what we've created over the past, 50, 60 years. And now we have to come up with solutions to manage it. And really, while the brains out there, the scientists start to look at climate and understand how they can actually have a more direct influence on climate itself and on weather and control weather events using technology and whatever they come up with, cloud seeding, there's something else that needs to be considered for us, which is, how do we protect ourselves? What can we do as a homeowner or someone that lives in a home or a business to ensure that we don't lose connectivity and we can retain power? What I particularly love about your solution, and you mentioned it as well, is the fact that traditionally when there's a blackout, the solar system is designed just with a cutoff switch to essentially cut off the entire solar system. So your home's no longer being powered by solar power because there's a blackout. But then when you have your solution added to a home or to a business, you have the ability then to keep the actual home or business operating off-grid, essentially, although it's still connected to the grid, and then allow for the solar panels and the inverter to still operate and power the home and power the battery. How does that actually work?
So first of all, the listeners may have heard of anti-islanding as a requirement of inverters. So that's a safety requirement, because when the network is down, that has a failure, then all inverters fundamentally will try and inject current into that network and keep it live. But obviously we don't really want that. So inverters have in them algorithms that look for the impedance on the lines, and when it senses that there's a failure, they will shut down. And any inverter that's passed the relevant standards here will comply with that. So the emerging solutions, which typically require the backup gateways, provide an extra level of isolation between the home and the grid, and that will provide that safety feature while keeping everything on the home side of that switch running. So in the outages that we talk about, the PV inverter is actually unaware that there's a grid failure. It just gets transferred from the main grid to the Franklin microgrid and continues to run. So it's a way of, yes, maintaining the regulation requirements, but delivering what the customer really wants. Because I think, when solar emerged in Australia, a lot of consumers believed that it would run during a grid outage, but of course it's not physically possible to do that. So having what we call a main interconnect device, which decides whether your home's connected to the grid or disconnected from the grid, allows you to exercise that freedom.
Yeah, it's such amazing tech, and I know you've been very careful there and choosing your words, and at the same token, ensuring it's as layman as possible. But I think fundamentally, anyone listening and watching will just get it. It's if you don't have that type of tech, if you've got a traditional home solar system and battery and an inverter, you need to look at it. What advice would you give, Mitch, to anyone who's listening to or watching this right now, and they think, look, I had my solar power system installed 10 years ago. It's working really, really well. I've got I'm not going to name any brand inverters, but we've got ABC panels, ABC inverter, and I'm pretty sure, and my system did not work when we last had a power outage. What would be what sort of steps should they take to explore what they currently have and look to upgrade what they currently have?
Yeah, there's a wealth of information online, which would enable you to do your own research on what sort of solutions you're after. But I think your first port of call would be the installer that gave you the solar system to begin with. There's been a lot of fluid operators, sadly, in Australia in that space. So if you can't find a contact for them, I would just suggest anyone go for a nice local electrician, and they'll probably point you in the right direction. But yeah, there's a lot of material.
About you, by the way.
The one.
No, good man. And look, the other question I have for you, really, and this is more holistic, but for anyone looking, and really looking at the TV show as well, why is it important for viewers to see and to watch the TV show first and foremost and understand ways of reducing their carbon footprint?
Well, I think as a society, we're all, or most of us, have bought into the energy transition and the need to shift from fossil fuels to renewable sources for the sustainability of our children's generation and those to follow. But it can be quite a daunting proposition when you're doing your own energy audit, so to speak, or looking at your own behavior. And it could be as simple as, opting for a different mode of transport to work or changing your thermostat at home. There's a lot of simple things to do. But when you get into the technology side, it can be quite overwhelming for people. And to me, it often boils down to a trade-off between capital expense and operational expense. And depending on your personal situation, how long you intend to stay in your household, it can really mean a different pathway for you. So being abreast of the different components that make up the road to zero is really important, so you can make your own educated decision, because not everyone needs the same solution.
No, very much so, mate. That's absolutely fantastic advice. Thank you for that. Final question for you, Mitch. So, what's new in the pipeline for Franklin? Can you give us any sneaky peeks as to what we can expect to see coming out of the US soon?
I can, mate, but at risk of confusing people, global manufacturers always have new and exciting things coming out for different regions. And as most of us will probably know, the American electrical network is quite different to most of the world. So we've got some exciting products that are just launching now in the US. So A-Power 2, which is our second generation energy storage product, which has the latest lithium iron phosphate cells in there with slightly higher capacity, a bigger inverter, which really doubles down on the whole home backup solution. And we've also looking at a DC coupled solution as well. But those are, for the immediate future, strictly limited to the US market. So all Australian viewers, as I'm assuming most of you are, you can continue to enjoy our existing Australian product range and look forward to those hardware improvements being released at a later date. But what's about exciting things in the short term are now the ability to plug into energy retailers, which give you more freedom of choice. So, for example, Amber will allow you to trade your energy and exploit the dynamic tariffs that we have. So that's probably the exciting thing here, but lots of good stuff to come.
Which is amazing. And for anyone who's not too savvy with VPP, jump onto our site, just type in VPP in the search bar, which is virtual power plant or virtual power plant, and just have a look at what it's got to say. I mean, one of the things that makes the return investment a lot quicker for battery storage, especially if you don't need all the capacity that you're actually storing, is to be able to release it during demand times. And it's a lot better than your feed-in tariff, believe me. So it's certainly a way of getting a better return on those. And as Mitch highlighted, the Amber plan is very, very good. A lot of retailers offer different plans as well, so explore all of them, especially Momentum Energies, because we like Momentum Energy a lot. Fantastic stuff, mate. Well, look, I'm really excited to see the episode go to air. So, everyone, the show goes to air on Saturday at 4 p.m. on 9 Life. Tune in. If you miss it, don't worry. It does encore very early on Sunday morning and a couple other times throughout the week. And then at the very end of the week, if you still haven't had a chance to see it live, jump onto 9 now, and you'll be able to stream it for the next few weeks, as well as find it on our website. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us, mate. I do appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing the episode go live later in the week.
My pleasure, mate. Most enjoyable. Thanks, Roche.
Thanks, mate. So, guys, you heard it here first. Definitely tune in this Saturday, 4 p.m. Franklin's technology is amazing. So I've seen it up close and personal. It's absolutely next level, and you certainly don't want to miss this episode, especially if you have, suffered a weather event in the past that's caused a power outage, and you have solar power or considering getting solar power. You definitely want to look at incorporating some FranklinWH battery technology onto your home. You can get a quote for Franklin's Tech, as well as various other brands, and and find installers in your local area by jumping onto our website at energymatters.com.au, and then either click the get a quote for solar power or just /free solar quotes, and we'll connect you to local installers in your local area. Make sure you put in the notes that you do actually specifically want a quote for FranklinWH or just Franklin. The installers will know what you're talking about, and we'll make sure that you get some good quotes in your local area. Other than that, thank you very much for your time, and we'll look forward to chatting to you next time. See ya.